Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button, so you never miss a story like this. And also comments where you are watching from, how many sons and daughters you have. Thanks.
My name is Elena Hartley, and I never expected my son's first words after marriage to feel like a knife to my heart. There was no hello, how are you, Mom? No warmth, no joy. Just cold entitlement. We're married now, Mom. Send me the key to the Malibu house. Those words cut through me like ice. I stood in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, staring out at the Pacific Ocean. That ocean had witnessed my every triumph and tragedy over the last 40 years. It had carried my father's ashes, my husband's ashes, and one day, it would carry mine. But at that moment, it bore witness to something else, my son's disregard. Daniel, I managed, though my voice shook. You got married? Yeah. Last weekend. His tone was casual, impatient, as if announcing a new credit card, not a life-altering milestone. Look, Sienna's always dreamed of honeymooning at the Malibu house. We need the keys ASAP. We're thinking of staying a month, maybe longer. Sienna. A name I'd never heard before that call. My new daughter-in-law, apparently. Yet I hadn't been invited to their wedding. I hadn't even known she existed. And now, they wanted my home. Not just any home. The Malibu house. The house my father, a legendary screenwriter, had purchased with the proceeds from his first Oscar-winning film. The house where Hollywood royalty once crowded around our dinner table. Where my children built sandcastles. Where I held my husband's hand as he breathed his last breath. I swallowed hard. I didn't know you were seeing someone seriously, Daniel. I would have loved to be at your wedding. It was small. Spontaneous. You wouldn't have liked it. His dismissal was sharp, practiced. So, the keys, can you have them sent over today? A memory flickered. Daniel at 7 years old, standing in this same kitchen, demanding the last piece of chocolate cake. When I suggested he share with his sister, he'd thrown a tantrum so fierce the cake ended up on the floor. Some patterns never change. Daniel, I said carefully, I haven't even met Sienna. Perhaps you could both come for dinner first. We could celebrate properly. Mom, there's no time. Sienna has auditions next month. This is our honeymoon window. His irritation crackled through the line. It's just a house. You can stay in your city condo. Just a house. As if the walls that held decades of love and grief were just drywall and wood. Your sister Amara is bringing the girls next week for their annual summer visit, I reminded him. It's tradition. They can skip a year. Or stay at a hotel. Amara can afford it with her professor's salary. I closed my eyes. The weight of being the peacekeeper had grown heavier since Richard died. Always smoothing Daniel's wake, always yielding. But something inside me shifted. Who is she, Daniel? I asked quietly. What? Sienna. Your wife. The woman you've known long enough to marry, but not long enough to introduce to your family. She's an actress. Incredibly talented. You'll meet her eventually. Now, about the keys. How long have you known her? He sighed. Does it matter? We're in love. This is real. It matters to me, I said firmly. Because I'm trying to understand why my son would exclude his family, then immediately demand access to a house that holds meaning for all of us. Jesus, Mom. It's not that complicated. We wanted privacy. We want the house. Why are you making this difficult? Because nothing about this was simple. Not his sudden marriage. Not his coldness. Not the gnawing suspicion twisting in my gut. I need to think about this, Daniel, I said finally. There's nothing to think about. I'm family. I want the house. Simple. Not simple, I whispered. Nothing about this is simple. He pushed harder, but I didn't bend. Congratulations on your marriage, Daniel. I look forward to meeting Sienna soon. And then I hung up. For a long time, I stood at the window, staring at the ocean's restless waves. They wanted my house. But they would not get it, not yet. Instead, I reached for my phone. Scrolled to a name I hadn't dialed in years. Victor Kane. Private investigator. Theo, I said when he answered, it's Elena Hartley. I need your services. Discreetly, and quickly. Then I made my second call, to Laura Cho, my attorney. Laura, I need to update my estate plans. Immediately. As I outlined my requests, something inside me hardened into resolve. Daniel and his mysterious bride wanted the Malibu house. Instead, would give them something far more valuable, and far more devastating. The truth. And this time, I would be the one writing the script. When I tell you that my son's sudden marriage set off every alarm bell in my soul, I mean it. That's why, less than 24 hours after his call, I found myself sitting in the back corner of a dim cafe in Westwood. Across from me sat Victor Kane, the man my late husband had once called the best fixer in Hollywood. Victor had aged, but not softened. His sharp blue eyes still missed nothing. His voice was calm, steady, the kind you trusted in a storm. I've done some digging, Elena, he said, sliding a thick folder across the table. And let's just say, your instincts were spot on. I hesitated before opening it. Something in my chest warned me that once I looked, I could never unsee. She's not who she claims to be, Victor continued. Your new daughter-in-law calls herself Sienna Moore now, but she was born Sophia Marks in Bakersfield. Blue-collar parents. Average life. No fame, no money. I finally flipped open the folder. The first page was a copy of her birth certificate. Then came a driver's license. Yearbook photos. College ID. She had reinvented herself completely. At 22, she legally changed her name, softened her accent, dyed her hair, and built a new story. Why? I asked quietly, though I already knew. Victor gave a dry smile. Hollywood, Elena. Reinvention is the currency here. I sipped my tea, keeping my hands steady. And her acting career? He snorted. Barely a flicker. A couple of commercials. Background roles. One indie film that never got distribution. Nothing remarkable. He leaned forward, voice low. But her relationship history? That's where things get interesting. My stomach tightened. Go on. The next pages in the folder were photos, glossy surveillance shots, candid snapshots, press clippings. Each one showed Sienna on the arm of a different man. Victor tapped them one by one. Julian Hargrove. Director. 30 years older. Gave her a small role in his period drama. Engagement ended the moment filming wrapped. Raymond Chen. Producer. Cast her in his streaming project. The show wasn't renewed. She moved on. Each relationship followed the same grim pattern, an older, influential man, a short burst of career advancement, and then a neatly executed exit. And now, my son. Victor's eyes softened slightly. Daniel, on the other hand, believes he's found true love. But Elena, he slid one more photograph forward. This wasn't about him. The photo froze me. It was Sienna, at my Malibu house. Where did you get this? I whispered. Charity event, March. You were absent because of your sister's illness. She attended specifically to network. Witnesses recall her asking detailed questions about the property, its history, its value. Some say she was more interested in the house than the people. The realization hit like a physical blow. She was in my home before she ever met my son. Victor nodded grimly. Daniel wasn't her goal. The Malibu house was. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. That house was more than property. It was legacy. Sanctuary. My children's memories. My husband's last breath. She's been meeting with real estate developers too, Victor continued, opening another folder. Oceanfront developments. They specialize in converting estates like yours into boutique hotels. I've got photos of her meetings with Howard Kingsley himself. I stared at the grainy images of Sienna in chic sunglasses, leaning over blueprints at a restaurant table with men in $1,000 suits. The final page was a transcript. My fingers trembled as I read. Vanessa, what if his mother refuses to let you use the house? Sienna, she won't. Daniel says she never denies him anything. We just need to get a foot in the door. Once we're inside, I'll plant the idea of selling. The old woman won't live forever. When she's gone, Daniel gets his share. The old woman. That was me. Reduced to an obstacle. A roadblock on her path to millions. I forced my voice to stay even. Does Daniel know? Victor shook his head. All evidence suggests no. He's completely blind to her motives. He believes this marriage is real. I closed the folder with deliberate care, though every muscle in my body screamed. My son, my foolish, needy, vulnerable son, had been targeted. Not for who he was, but for what he could access. I looked up at Victor, my spine straightening. Thank you. This is exactly what I needed. He studied me carefully. What will you do now? I allowed myself the smallest of smiles. I'm going to give them a wedding gift. Victor raised a brow. A gift, I said, that Sienna will never forget. And one that Daniel desperately needs. The drive home along Pacific Coast Highway was surreal. The ocean glittered like diamonds in the afternoon sun, indifferent to my turmoil. But inside me, a strange calm had settled. My son believed he was in love. My new daughter-in-law believed she'd already won. But they'd both underestimated me. I was Elena Hartley. Daughter of Charles Hartley, the man whose scripts defined Golden Age cinema. Widow of Richard Hartley, who taught me that real love was built on loyalty and sacrifice. I had lived through the highest highs and the darkest lows. And if Sienna thought she could script her way into our legacy, she had forgotten one simple truth. Every great story has a twist. And I was about to write mine. I knew one thing with absolute certainty. The Malibu house would never belong to Sienna Moore. By the time I walked into Laura Cho's law office the next morning, my decision was carved into stone. Laura's office always reminded me of a movie set. The sweeping skyline of downtown Los Angeles framed in glass. The carefully arranged credentials, the sleek furniture, all crafted to project authority. And today, authority was exactly what I needed. She slid the freshly prepared documents across the polished table. You're certain about this, Elena? It's irreversible once executed. I took the fountain pen in my hand, pausing. Absolutely certain. The Malibu house has always been meant for my grandchildren. This just makes it official. Laura, a woman who had managed my affairs for over 2 decades, gave me her lawyer's gaze, cool, probing. And Daniel? He won't take this well. No, I said, my voice steady, but this isn't about punishment. It's about protection. I signed the first page with a flourish. The weight lifted the moment ink touched paper. The house was no longer Daniel's future bargaining chip. It was secured, placed in an irrevocable trust, bypassing both my children. When I passed, the property would go directly to Amara's daughters, with Amara serving as trustee until they turned 30. Laura leaned back. You understand, you won't be able to undo this later, even if you change your mind. I looked her dead in the eye. I won't. The pen scratched across the final line. And with that, the Malibu house, my father's masterpiece, my husband's last resting place, was sealed against predators like Sienna. That evening, I invited Amara to my city apartment, away from the curious ears in Malibu. She arrived promptly, as she always did. My daughter had inherited Richard's punctuality, his sense of duty. At 44, she was a tenured professor, mother of 2 remarkable girls, and my most reliable confidant. "Mom," she said, embracing me warmly. "What's this about?" "Your message sounded urgent." I poured her a glass of Sauvignon Blanc, her favorite, and set it before her. "Your brother got married," I said flatly. The glass nearly slipped from her hand. "What? To who?" Exactly my question. Her brow furrowed, the professor and her piecing through the puzzle. "Daniel, married? Without telling anyone? Without inviting us?" I nodded. "Her name is Sienna Moore. An actress. Apparently." Amara set her glass down sharply. "And he called you, what? To brag?" I let out a humorless laugh. "No. To demand the keys to the Malibu house for their honeymoon. For a month. Possibly longer." The outrage on her face mirrored my own when I'd first heard the words. "During July? While the girls are supposed to be there?" "Yes," I said softly. "He suggested you put them in a hotel." "You can afford it," he said. Her mouth dropped open. "Unbelievable." "Indeed." I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "That's why I had her investigated." Amara blinked. "Mom. You hired a private investigator?" I didn't flinch. Something felt wrong. My instincts were correct. I summarized what Victor had discovered. The name change. The manufactured identity. The trail of older men in power. The secret meetings with developers. The transcripts calling me the old woman in their way. With each revelation, Amara's expression hardened from shock to anger, then finally, grim clarity. "She's a con artist," Amara said flatly. "Yes. And Daniel is her mark." "Does he know?" I shook my head. "No. He believes she loves him. And if I confronted him directly, he would only defend her. You know how defensive he gets about his relationships." Amara groaned. Always so desperate to prove himself. To be loved, no matter the cost. Silence settled between us for a moment. Then she asked the question I'd been waiting for. "So, what's your plan?" I smiled faintly. "I've restructured the trust. The Malibu property now passes directly to your daughters. Effective immediately." She blinked. "That's significant. Daniel will be furious. Daniel will learn that actions have consequences." I sipped my wine slowly. "There's more. Tomorrow, I'll send him a gift. A wedding gift." "What kind of gift?" "The truth," I said simply. "Everything Victor uncovered. Along with the new trust documents." Amara's eyes widened. "Mom, you realize that could end his marriage. Destroy it completely. That's the point. And your relationship with him?" I met her gaze steadily. "If protecting him from a predator costs me his affection, so be it. What kind of mother would I be if I stood by and allowed him to be used like this?" For a long moment, she was silent. Then she reached across the table and took my hand. "You've always been fierce, Mom," she whispered. "I'll support you. So will the girls. Just remember." Her voice softened. "For all his flaws, he's still the boy who used to fall asleep on your lap during movie nights. Try not to lose sight of that." A lump rose in my throat at the memory. Daniel at 6, curled against me, eyes wide as we watched one of my father's films. Asking endless questions about storytelling. About heroes and villains. When had that boy become a man so careless with his family? The next morning, I put the final touches on my gift. It was a box wrapped in heavy cream paper, embossed with the Hartley family crest, tied with silk ribbon. Inside was a smaller box, an antique film canister, holding the full dossier. Photos. Transcripts. Copies of the trust papers. Everything Sienna thought she'd buried. By afternoon, I was standing in the marble lobby of Daniel's downtown loft. The doorman, familiar with me, accepted the box with a polite nod. "It's a wedding gift," I said, my voice calm, my heart pounding. "It requires immediate attention." As I turned and walked back to my car, a strange peace washed over me. The Malibu house was protected. The truth was on its way. Tomorrow, the explosion would come. And I was ready for it. I had just handed my son the match that would set his new marriage on fire. The morning after I left the package at Daniel's loft, I woke with a strange calm. The Malibu sun streamed across my bed, golden and warm, as though nothing in the world had shifted. But I knew better. By now, Daniel and his bride had opened my gift. By now, the walls of their glossy new marriage were cracking. My phone rang just after noon. His name blazed across the screen. Daniel. I let it buzz twice before answering. "Hello, darling." His voice was jagged, raw with fury. "What the hell did you do?" "I sent you a gift," I said coolly. "Didn't you like it? You had her followed? You spied on my wife?" His voice broke on the word wife, the wounded loyalty of a boy who hadn't yet realized he'd been played. "Daniel," I said softly, "I didn't spy. I protected. There's a difference." "Protect? You call destroying my marriage protection?" "No," I corrected, my tone calm. "I call exposing a fraud protection." There was a sharp silence, then muffled voices in the background. Sienna's, shrill and panicked. "She told me you'd do this." Daniel snapped. "She warned me. You can't stand the thought of me being happy, can you?" For the first time in years, I raised my voice. "This has nothing to do with happiness. This has to do with the Malibu house. With your father's legacy. With everything this family has built." His reply was a roar. "It's my life, Mother. Not yours." And then, the line went dead. By evening, the tabloids had already picked it up. Hartley Ayre's bride, a past she can't hide? Someone had leaked pieces of the dossier to the press. I hadn't. Which meant Daniel had. Perhaps in anger. Perhaps in desperation. But either way, the story was out. By nightfall, paparazzi swarmed the front gates of his loft. Photos of Sienna storming into a black car filled every gossip site. Her mascara streaked, her diamond ring conspicuously absent. I sat in my kitchen, sipping tea, when the landline rang, the one almost no one had the number for. I answered slowly. "Yes?" The voice on the other end was low, trembling with rage. "Sienna. You think you've won, don't you?" she hissed. "Old women always think they're clever. But Daniel loves me. He'll always choose me." I allowed myself a faint smile. "If you believe that, my dear, why are you calling me?" Her breath caught. For a moment, she was silent. Then her tone shifted, venom dripping. "Enjoy your victory. Because when Daniel realizes what you've done, when he realizes you've stolen his inheritance, he'll never forgive you." The line went dead before I could reply. The next morning, Daniel appeared unannounced at my apartment. He looked nothing like the polished executive he liked to present to the world. His tie was missing, his shirt untucked, his eyes bloodshot. He stood in my doorway, chest heaving. "How could you, Mom?" I let him in, motioning toward the sofa. "Sit." He didn't. He paced. "You humiliated me. You ruined my marriage. You leaked it to the press." "That wasn't me," I cut in sharply. "If the press has it, they got it from someone else. Perhaps your bride." He flinched at that. A flicker of doubt. But his pride shoved it down. "You had no right." "I had every right," I said, steel in my voice. "That house isn't just a property, Daniel. It's your grandfather's legacy. Your father's legacy. And I'll be damned if I let some actress with a forged past use it as her bargaining chip. She loves me, he shouted, pounding a fist against his chest. I rose slowly from my chair, facing him. Then let her prove it. Let her love you without Malibu. Without the trust. Without the Hartley name to open doors. He stared at me, fury and something softer warring in his eyes. You've disinherited me? I drew in a long breath. The house now belongs to your nieces. Irrevocably. It bypasses you. That decision is final. His face crumpled, not just with anger, but with something deeper. Betrayal. The sting of being outmaneuvered by the very mother he'd always tried to impress. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, in a voice so low I almost didn't hear it, he whispered. You've destroyed me. And before I could answer, he turned and walked out, slamming the door so hard the frames on the wall rattled. 2 days later, the headlines screamed louder. Sienna Moore files for divorce, 72 hours after wedding. The internet devoured the scandal. Talk shows mocked it. Memes spread like wildfire. But I felt no triumph. Only a hollow ache where my son's voice used to be. He hadn't called. He hadn't come back. He was gone, swallowed by shame and silence. Amara tried to comfort me. Mom, you did the right thing. You saved him from a predator. But late at night, I still heard his voice. You've destroyed me. And I wondered if, in saving him, I had also lost him forever. I had spent my life protecting my family's name. But now, my son despised me, and his bride was circling like a wounded predator. The week after Sienna filed for divorce, I expected her to disappear quietly, retreating into another scandal, another rich fool's life. Instead, she struck back. It began with a letter. Not to me, to the press. Elena Hartley, the matriarch of the Hartley fortune, is a manipulative tyrant who destroyed her son's happiness to cling to power. She has stolen her own child's inheritance, leaving him with nothing. Within hours, my face was plastered across every magazine. The Ice Queen of Malibu. The mother who ruined a marriage. But the real blow came when Daniel called, his voice thick with something I hadn't heard since he was a boy, heartbreak. Mom, he whispered, they're saying you ruined me. That you stole the house. That you don't care about me at all. My chest tightened. Daniel. But he cut me off. I need to see you. Tonight. He came at dusk, storm clouds pressing heavy over the city. But he wasn't alone. Sienna walked in at his side, a silk trench wrapped tightly around her body, her chin lifted like a queen returning from exile. The air thickened instantly. I set my teacup down, my hand steady though my heart raced. Daniel, I greeted, ignoring her. You said you wanted to talk. But it was Sienna who spoke first. Cut the act, Elena. You wanted this. A showdown. Well, here we are. I forced a smile. I was hoping you'd be too busy drafting your next marriage contract. Her eyes flashed, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a document, thick, stamped, official. This, she said, dropping it on my marble table, is a lawsuit. For defamation. For intentional interference in a marriage. For emotional damages. Daniel winced, looking away. I leaned forward slowly, running a finger across the edge of the papers. Do you really want to do this, Sienna? A trial? Under oath? Where your entire past will be dragged out into the light? She smirked. Do you really think the world cares about some old mistakes? No. They care about this. She tapped the tabloid spread across my counter, all branding me the villain. Public opinion is already mine. The law will follow. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, his face pale. And suddenly, I saw it, the truth. This wasn't about him. It had never been about him. Sienna wasn't fighting for love. She was fighting for leverage. I straightened, my voice low but sharp. You want the house. Her silence was confirmation enough. Daniel's head snapped up. What? No, she wouldn't. Oh, but she would, I said coldly. She married you for that house. She filed for divorce the second she realized she couldn't have it. And now she's suing because it's her last bargaining chip. Sienna's smile faltered, only for a flicker, but it was enough. Daniel turned to her, confusion turning to dawning horror. Tell me that's not true. She reached for his hand, her voice sweet, trembling. Danny, I love you. This is about us. About what your mother did. Tell me the house isn't why you married me, he demanded, his voice shaking. Her lips parted, but no words came. Silence crashed between us. Heavy. Unforgiving. And then Daniel pulled his hand back, as though her touch burned. His face broke, pain etched across every line. You used me, he whispered. Sienna's mask finally cracked. Anger surged through her. Fine. Yes. I wanted the house. Because without it, you're nothing. You're just another spoiled little boy living in his mother's shadow. The words sliced him open. I saw it in his eyes. The betrayal. The humiliation. I rose from my chair, standing tall. Get out, Sienna. She whirled on me, her voice venom. This isn't over, old woman. You think you've won, but you've destroyed your own son. He'll never forgive you. Her heels clicked like gunshots as she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The silence that followed was heavier than her presence. Daniel stood frozen, his hands trembling, his eyes wet. Finally, he sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. Mom, he choked, I was so blind. I crossed the room, my heart breaking, and for the first time in years, I pulled him into my arms. You weren't blind, I whispered. You just wanted to believe in love. And there's no shame in that. He clung to me, the way he hadn't since he was a boy. And in that moment, I realized something. Protecting him hadn't been about the house. Or the legacy. It had been about this, holding my son together when the world tried to tear him apart. The lawsuit vanished within days, buried quietly, no doubt because Sienna had no stomach for a trial that would expose her. She fled Malibu, her name burned, her career in ashes. The tabloids moved on. They always do. But Daniel didn't recover overnight. Trust once shattered doesn't heal easily. He stayed with me for weeks, quiet, distant, piecing himself back together. And slowly, he began to smile again. Months later, he came to me one evening as I was reading in the garden. His voice was calm, steady. Mom? I looked up. Yes, darling. He hesitated, then said the words I'd thought I'd never hear again. Thank you. For saving me. Tears stung my eyes, though I kept my voice light. I'm your mother. It's what I do. He smiled, and in that moment, I knew I hadn't destroyed him. I had saved him, and us. The Malibu house would stand. The Hartley name would endure. But more importantly, so would we. And for the first time in a long time, I felt peace.